Hello, 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 Tobago. Good night, good night, good night. Joining you live from Tobago Updates Television Studios. My name is Edison Thomas, and welcome to For the Hour, where we discuss Tobago's business and all the current happenings that affects Tobago. All right. Over the weekend, we had a wonderful weekend, I must say. The weather was nice. We had some showers. We had mostly sun. We had also the botanical gardens opening, and we had the lights, the beautiful lights. It was so great to see the lights come back to the botanical gardens, and the activities that are surrounding it. So it's not just the lights and the spectacle of the lights, but there's also, some well-needed time for Tobagonians to connect with each other and with their family, right? Another activity to enjoy for Tobagonians, right? So go out and support. They'll be open, I think, until January, I believe, but there's programs each night, whether it be parang or there's movie nights, spoken word, and so there's different things, and it's very affordable. Um, so go out and take part, and let's come together as a community. Let's build that Christmas spirit that some of us always saying, we don't feel Christmas, but it's events like these that really help to foster the unique cultural Christmas spirit that we have here as Tobagonians. So I urge all Tobagonians to go out and support. But also I hope that everybody had a great Monday today. They started off the week well, put themselves in a gear, put themselves in a gear mainly to produce and have a productive week, so set the tone right for the rest of the week. I want to believe it's week before last, if my memory serves me correctly, we had a topic relating towards Tobago Day. And for the observance of Tobago Day, we mainly spoke about the anniversary of the assembly. Has the assembly advanced itself for the time from its inception to now? Is the assembly where we want it to be? All right, and we spoke about that. I had a riveting discussion at length on that day about Tobago's autonomy, or Tobago, or if not autonomy, what level the assembly should be operating at as it relates to our Trinidad counterparts and central government. But tonight, we want to take a different turn to it, in that this December would have been 2 years since the current administration, or I would say the current dispensation of the administration, would have been voted into office. All right, and of course referring to now the Tobago People's Party, but 2 years ago they were elected under the PDP's banner, right? And so I believe it's our responsibility as citizens to hold, I don't want to say hold accountable, but yes, that is one of the responsibilities, but we must also discuss and, give a fair review to the persons that are governing us. We elected them, and so constructive criticism is always needed for persons to be able to know in which direction they should be going, which directions the people want to see them go. All right, and so tonight we are going to discuss that. We are going to review the last 2 years of the administration on main topics, right? I believe very important topics as it relates to Tobago. And yes, we're just going to just discuss that, right? So our panel to discuss that tonight, no strangers to the show, all right? We have Leroy George, who's a political activist. We have Mr. Charles Smith, who is the chairman of the Tobago East Constituency Executive of the PNM Tobago Council. All right, and also we have Mr. Barry Nelson, political activist. All right, so good night, everybody. I hope I'm very excited for tonight's discussion. I hope that we have a fruitful one, and there would be a lot of positives coming out. Not really, we don't always want to shine up all the negative, because the negative does always take the space, and the negative is what has bring views and all of these attention. We also want to shine some light on the positive that was done as well. So promise me, guys, we're gonna shine some light on the positive tonight as well, right? See, you were shaking your head. All right, so my first question to the panel, all right? And I want to start with Mr. Smith first, and then we'll go to Barry, go to Leroy. If you were to give over the past 2 years, if you want to give a grade, a letter grade, to this administration, what would it be, letter grade wise? And back up your answer, right? If you were to give the administration currently a grade, a letter grade, what grade would it be and why?
Edison and Tobago, good night. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. When I went to A levels, which was more than 20 years ago, back then you used to be graded in GCE, and you would get a grade A, B, C, D, or E, or U, which is ungraded.
Yeah.
But they would tell you that from A to E is a pass. So tonight I would give the administration an E.
Okay.
But it's a passing grade. I want us to understand that. And the reason it is a passing grade is because it could have been a lot worse. Could have been a lot worse. But the economy is still somewhat alive. It's running. The assembly is able to meet its day-to-day requirements largely in terms of economics and financing of the island. Persons are still largely employed. We have not gone into a bad recession, although we have seen economic stagnation. So it isn't great, but I know that it could have been worse. And so I would give them an E, which is a passing grade, but it doesn't spell good for their performance.
Right. I just want to make a comment for the persons on the Facebook. If you could share the live, please do so. But also, if you want to leave a comment saying what would be the grade that you want to leave this administration for the past 2 years, also put it in the comments as well. We would love to see that. All right, we go to you, Barry. What would you rate or grade this current administration over the past 2 years' performance?
Good night to the viewers, to the listeners on the various platforms, and on a special good night to my fellow panelists, and a special good night to my partner. First time I met this guy, I always see him on a program, when I hear he was coming. What's your name, Auntie?
Charles Smith.
Charles Smith. When I hear Smith was on the program, I said, nah, man, he ain't coming. PNM will come when the other. Yeah. But nice reaching. Well, I wouldn't say, well, I think that Mr. Smith is being disingenuous. But I will give them a B. A B.
You could do plus and minus if you want.
Yeah.
Okay,
the reason
so B
being
plus.
is that when I look at, in order for you to give a grade, you have to look for it, because as he said, when you go to A levels, depending on the grade, you have different category, understanding, skills, and so forth. So in order to give a grade, I look at 4 categories. The political side of it, the policy side of it, the execution, the execution of those policies, and the accountability. And when you look at the political side of it, you have to understand, in the Westminster system, you always see the regime, the head, which is the Rowley regime and the Kamala regime and the Farley regime of the case. So when you look at I would say the Farley regime, because that's how we look at the head, we call the regime the head. And then when you look at the political side, you have to understand that the Chief Secretary Farley would have done very well, because he would have encountered two major hiccups in terms of the audio gate and the fallout with he and Watson Duke, the past leader of the team. And when you look at those two,
You give him a B.
when you give him of those things, he maintained that his administration would have maintained that political stability, because he could have either of them, the administration could have fallen apart, and that did not happen. So in order for you to govern, your political stability is very important, because if investors look at your political stability of a country and a party, and in terms of the political side of it, the category, he would have done well, because he would have his administration, and he would have withstand those two what you want to call it. Secondly, the policy perspective. We have seen that if you watch at the various division and things, take into consideration, we saw it from the tourism sector, where the policy of the carnival, to be going to have been talking about this carnival for years and years, and this administration would have come in, the first year it did not come out that good, so that means they would have go back to the drawing board, did their assessment and they come back in the second year, and we saw this success where the Tobago Carnival is concerned. Then if we look at others thing, and then you look at the division of works, where we seen a policy where we seen the road network, although it's not being paved, but we've seen that there's this, the patching of the potholes and this kind of thing, and it's happening all over. So that means. Then secondly, we saw the quarry, which could be a generating thing for the Tobago. We see that there is some kind of restructuring there and so forth. Then we look at the agriculture, the agriculture sector. We are at Tactico, where we're trying to vitalize the agriculture sector. So when you look at that in terms of policy or other policy, then in terms of the execution, that have to be, because you could have policy, but you have to execute. And this is where I did not give them the A, because of the execution. And that execution have to be part political, the administration itself, the executive council, and the public service, which execute policy. And I think that the chief administrator, along with the secretary for public admin, we have to get up. Each administrator have to get their division up to stuff. There must be too often in the period you've seen a division changing administrators, so there is no continuity in terms of getting up to speed in terms of executing the policy that the various. I don't only touch on one and two of the policy, because I don't want to be long. Right. And secondly, the fourth thing is accountability. And I think that is where the most they have to improve on in terms of their accountability towards the public. People. And that is part that the division, the public servant, have to make sure that each division administrator, they have to account, and also the executive council, they have to account, especially where those big item projects is concerned.
Right. Leroy, letter grade.
Letter grade F. Do we start with that F?
That's roughly right.
It's not rough. Because grades are given.
That's Leroy's opinion.
Not
if
opinion.
F is F.
You cannot give grades on any other terms other than measurables. Right? I would correct Mr. Charles Smith. There's a very definite definition for a recession.
Absolutely.
Right? A recession, the definition of it
negative
is
growth.
that you have negative growth for more than 2 terms.
2 quarters.
For more than 2 quarters. Yes, sorry. And the reality of the situation is that we've seen a full year of minus 2%. That's negative growth. So we are in a recession, and we have to take that into consideration. But that is not much of a measurable other than the minus 2%. There are other measurables, such as, did you live up to the things that you promised? There are things that were promised that were measurables also. For example, you promised that you were going to decentralize the development spending. And the way you intended to decentralize the development spending was to give each electoral district $10 million every single year so that they could customize the development spending to suit their necessary needs, right?
In each
Which
district.
was a brilliant idea. Give that idea an A+. The reality of the situation is 2 years have passed since. They have not gotten a red cent, not one. Right? That is 0% of what was promised. What they did get is a promise that they would get 1.5% of what they were elected on, what they promised. Instead of the 10 million per year, 150,000. And a jump high, jump lower, 150,000 divided by 10 million, you're looking at, multiplied by 100, you're looking at 1.5%. Whether you do A levels, or like me, you went from O levels straight to trade school, straight to university, right? 1.5% is a measurable that carries an F. Right? We also saw other promises such as, and I'll give this an A as an idea, that Tobago would become the #1 producer of alternative flour in the entire Caribbean. It came with another measurable. By the end of the first term, in the second year, I believe it wasn't the first term, in the first year, they were going to have the first plant up and running. We have seen no such thing. That is 0. That is a measurable. Now, when it comes to Carnival, I suspect they would get an A from me. I thought it's a brilliant idea to have 2 carnivals. I think it's a brilliant idea. I think it is profitable. I hear people saying that it's not profitable. That is not true. What they did is what they're supposed to do where the carnival is concerned. Governments exist to, amongst other things, assist in the growth of private sector. And the real figures are that every single year, Trinidad and Tobago spends about $140 million on Carnival. And every single year, the Ministry of National Security does a check where they randomly select persons and they ask them, why did you come? How long are you staying, etc. And when they're leaving, they ask them, how much did you spend? And so they're able to measure with great accuracy how much Trinidad and Tobago would have made. And generally speaking, we make over 300 million. Right? So to have more carnival could never be a bad thing. Yes, it's true that the Tobago House of Assembly would not get back that $12 to $14 million that they put into it. But the island gets it. And they do the right thing there. So you get a proper A. If I could have measured it. Unfortunately, we saw that the Division of Tourism did not do what is necessary for us to measure. We saw Tashia Boris, the Secretary for Tourism, go out there and say that how Tobago Carnival the first year made $300 million. And then when you listen to her reasoning as to how she came up with the $300 million, you realize she copied. Because the exact precise wording of how central government, through the Ministry of National Security, comes up with the $300 million she used, not taking into consideration that central government was only checking international visitors. On the ferry, that is not international visitors. You have Trinidad and Tobago visitors. That is not to say that Trinidadians coming here don't help to develop the economy, but you didn't measure it. Right? So I would have given an A for that. The last thing I would say, CivilNet gave us a measurable in that they would have asked, and this was at the end of 1 year, before all the financial scandals and stuff came into the fray. And they would have asked persons how they feel about different things, about 16 different questions. And when it comes to how the overall administration performed, all the questions that pertain to that, the mode average was poor. Poor is a failing grade, right? And as a result, I would have to reluctantly give them an F.
All right. So Harsh grade coming from Leroy, but I mean it's his opinion, so we had to respect it, you know. So, but um, I want to move on to specific sections as it relates to Tobago, and the performance of the administration in those sections. And I want to start first with infrastructure. All right. Um, for me, infrastructure is one of the most important markers of development or performance because it's very visible, right? Policies is hard to track, right? Because you can't see policy. You understand? You know, culture is very hard to track as well. But when somebody builds something, the road paved, the cupboards built, we have retaining walls, we have drains and all these proper drainage, it is noticeable. You can see it, right? So I wanted to ask the panel, what do they think that how the administration performed in terms of the infrastructural development in Tobago over the 2 years? Notwithstanding, we have severe budget. We had a lot of budget constraints, yes? And that's understandable. We're always operating under scarcity, yes? But was that budget fairly managed to give Tobagonians proper infrastructure over the 2 years, right? Let me go with you, Mr. Smith.
Well, Edison, the blunt answer would be no. And I would tell you why. But first, I want to remind Barry that I sat on an interview panel with him 5 years ago. Both of us, we were cast interviewing for a particular position. Both of us sat on that panel. So I do remember Barry.
So Barry, remember?
And it would mean that Barry has a little challenge with his memory. And that's why he gave them a B. Right? Because if he remembered all the challenges and the debacle, he would easily, that grade would go down quickly. But let's talk about infrastructure. All right? Let's talk about infrastructure. Now, infrastructure of itself is one of the biggest economic drivers. Because when you spend money through that development, it finds its way through into the society itself. But one of the challenges that we faced was that the THA, whatever the policy decision was, and the problem with their policy is, first of all, policies are brought to the house and you see it, you can hear it, so you can track it. But we have had some challenges with the infrastructure that is the THA and the sit-ins. And of course, we know we're going to have a next problem in a couple of weeks again when they defer the questions, because you can't ask questions in the house. But that's another thing. The policies, you see it in action. And the policy of this current administration is to employ contractors from Trinidad and to send hundreds of millions of dollars to Trinidad. So it does not filter its way into the society so that the society is built up because the finances are passing through the persons who are there. How could I give that a good grade? I can't. Further to that, when you do it under the auspices of it being an emergency, and many moons later is yet to be completed, then I struggle to understand the policy that is guiding the decision making. At first, I thought it was mere incompetence, newness. You now come into a position, so you're not too familiar with how to go about doing things. Yeah. But after 2 years, it can't be incompetence. I had to say is a policy direction. So it had to be bad mind. They're not concerned about the electorate in the way that they should, so as to treat with them in the way that they should, to maintain the promises. So where infrastructure is concerned, I would give them an ungraded. I can't grade it because they simply did not do that which they promised to do. And the actions that they are taking is simply not in the best interest of us as Tobagonians. The final thing I would say, and I love the plan for the redevelopment of Scarborough. But is it a pie in the sky? Could it be done? And how I view things is this way. When you set a policy directive, the way I follow, if you believe in that directive, is if you put your money where your mouth is.
True.
So I look at the budget statements to see how you allocate your funding towards the development of these things. And if you ain't put no money in it, then you're not serious about it. And that's where I would leave it.
Barry, like you wanted you to come in.
You know, I listened to Smith, and you are the chairman of the PNN. I just want to get that correct.
Tobago
East Council.
Tobago East.
Constituency,
Smith, you come on this program and talking about completion. You're forgetting the fiasco that happened before the last election where
Barry,
money was. No, hold on, I give you time.
I hear you, but our response is not comparative. Our response is we are viewing the administration.
Right.
What did they do? So don't talk about the PNM.
Well,
Talk about what did
What
the
did we
administration do.
That was just my prelude.
Okay, all right,
That
go
was
ahead,
my
go ahead.
prelude.
All right,
No,
good one.
no. Millions of dollars, even if goes to $1 billion, was supposed to PNM spend on infrastructure, road repair. Some was not done. Some was not done. People get paid for it.
You better
Some was
be
not
careful.
completed
Some like your court closed.
based on the audit report.
Which report? You've seen that report?
Based on the utterance of the chief secretary.
Okay.
Allow me, please.
You're moving the goalpost.
Go
man.
ahead,
Go ahead, Barry. Go ahead, Barry.
And you come in here and talk about completion. If those roadworks and infrastructure, that money, the billions were spent, some of the infrastructure that this present administration is doing would have been, they do not have to do. And those monies would have spent elsewhere in other infrastructural development. We talk about the Allfields Road, money was paid, people was paid for road that was not done. And you come in and talk about completion. Set aside that. Let me answer the question. But I need to respond to you about completion. You have no integrity to come here to talk about the completion but no infrastructure. And as PNM, I make sure I answer that. You didn't represent it as no political analysis. You are the East PNM with your administration. Right. To answer your question directly, infrastructure is an area that where large money, the roads, it's not easy to build roads, to repair roads, to build canal, and to repair, maintain, and to build, far less to build new roads. For example, the money that the Tobago House of Assembly get for development program is 268 million. That is not for works alone, that is not for work. That is for the whole assembly. How much division it has? So that money have to be part of and and in my opening salvo, I said we have seen that where the road maintainers in terms of patching and that have been right through, not a particular village, or that have been going through to all parts of Tobago. They have been spreading it. There are plenty of roads to fix, but the secretary, I don't know where, sometimes I wonder where they're finding the money from to do all these things. To do all this. And secondly, I missed my thought there. Right. And we have seen, as I said, the policy, we have seen that that division, the infrastructure, which the quarry the quarry have been trying to restructure. They have applied for license to export in order to bring more money into the assembly coffers, so that they could do those infrastructure and other development programs. Now, recently, the chief secretary would have alluded to the monies that the central government owes the Tobago House of Assembly. It's not that he asking for additional money. That was money that was allocated and was not allocated and passed in the budget, assented to by the president and by parliament first and by the president for the Tobago House of Assembly. Those monies, for example, the last financial year, I did a check. I did a check on the figures, but I have to double check it. And far as there's a $230 million for this last financial year that the central government owed the THA. $230 million.
Just for the 1 year?
Yeah, just for the 1 year.
Okay.
For the last financial year. No, you expect people like Smith, who complaining that the infrastructure is not done. You expect people like them to come out and support the Chief Secretary in the interest of to be able to get what is due to them so that we can do the infrastructure work that he's saying you'll give them ungraded for. But we don't, sometimes we have to put politics apart and party politics and look for the better good of the island and the people of Tobago.
So what's the grade, Barry?
What's the grade?
Yeah, because that
I
was
give
the
them
question.
I give them an A.
On infrastructure.
We saw the infrastructure that we saw the road, the new road that the Mount Mary road, the bill. How much was all the bill in 21 years? We've seen that with the EMA, the probably they not go through the right way, the road that they intend to do bill actually with. How much was all the bill in 21 years? And you are the audacity to come here and talk about incompletion? Come on now.
So you give them an A.
In terms of infrastructure.
A.
If we infrastructure. All right.
Take into consideration the allocation in terms of
Barry, we
development.
taking the A. We taking the A.
Yeah,
Barry.
I am not taking no A, I am taking an F. F. And here is why we say F. As I would have made mention of, according to the definition of a recession, Tobago is in a recession, right? A measurable recession, we see negative growth at 2%, right? And just to put it in more context, we're seeing double-digit upward growth happening in Trinidad, whilst Tobago having that negative 2%, that could lead to inflation. Because when you have too much money,
Can I ask a question? I interject? Whether coming from the private sector or from the government. How much billions of dollars is spent in Trinidad? 53 billion. How much billion is spent in Tobago?
Right.
What that money coming, the interjection that you talk about, coming from the private sector in Trinidad or from government. $53 billion out of over $54 billion. We getting 2 point something with majority for recurring expenditure.
Barry, you're being disingenuous because at the last budgetary cycle, the information that the Division of Finance put out said that there was negative 36% growth in infrastructure just now. If that is the case, you give them an A for that, eh? Remember, you give them an A for negative 36%.
In context of the resources,
let's not talk about comparison, because the question is, you receive more funding than the previous administration did. The previous administration, the PNM administration, had positive growth. You are having negative growth with more funds, and you are complaining about funds. Come now, man, Barry, man. Let's allow Leroy. Let's allow Leroy to give his grade. I'm interested in Leroy's justification.
Mr. Moderator, I accepted Mr. Barry Nelson's question specifically because he was interrupted by Mr. Charles Smith,
My
which
apologies.
in my opinion was wrong. However, I would caution both Mr. Barry Nelson and Mr. Charles Smith that my style of discourse does not make for interruptions too much. I'm keenly aware that irrespective of whatever you say, I'm going to have an opportunity to reply.
My humble apology.
That being said,
Go ahead.
That being said, to address Mr. Barry Nelson's question about the spending, right? The Dispute Resolution Commission set very stringent guidelines as to how much Tobago is to get. The reality of the situation is when the dispute resolution sat, Tobago had just over 4% of the population of Trinidad and Tobago, and based on that, Tobago is to be allocated no less than 4.03% in any given fiscal year. The reality of the situation is Tobago now has closer to 5%. And so I am in full support of the Chief Secretary when he says that he wants to see a revisiting of the DRC. That being said, I heard him say that central government is owing THA over $200 million. I heard the Senator Hislop, state that central government gave THA in the last fiscal year their full allocation. So I did some research because I'm hearing the Chief Secretary claim something closer to what Barry is saying, which is that they haven't gotten their full sting. And from what I'm seeing, It's not 100%. It's somewhere in the vicinity of 99%, which is understandable. And I think the chief secretary should probably give the job of finance secretary to somebody that is qualified either in theory or in practice to be the finance secretary.
I agree with you.
Because
100%, to be honest with you.
he should understand that when a budget reading is made by the Minister of Finance, the minister makes these allocations based on an assumption on the price of petrochemicals.
Right.
And in the last fiscal year, he made an abnormally high presumption on the price of petrochemicals.
Right.
That does not mean that Tobago should get significantly less. The reality of the situation is we have the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, so that in the final quarter, if you notice that what was projected is not what is, 3/4 of it should be met. So when I see 99%, that makes sense to me that THA should get that.
One question I have here before.
Yes.
So what happens when, if it is that upon examination, you see that of the budget, Trinidad spent 100% of their allocation, but we only got 99 or 98% of ours.
But they did not.
The minute that 4.03% is dropped below, the THA has not only a right, but an obligation to take them to court.
Okay.
And I am supporting, even if it's $1 less, I am supporting him taking it to court.
Okay.
I understand that some people are saying that it's plain petty, right? But whilst he may not be that good as a financial secretary, he is a logical individual. And he understands that you don't give people bad habits. And to allow that price to go below, or how much Tobago gets, or the THA gets rather, to go below that allocation by even 1 cent, is to give leverage that is not acceptable at all. The last thing I will say is that the reality of the situation is that this administration in the last 2 years has gotten more money from central government than I've ever seen in recent memory. I don't think I could remember any administration getting more, any 4-year term. You get $2.5 billion every year. And what do we see? Just as Mr. Charles Smith said, and he's correct, over a third, 36% he said, was the decrease in the income generated in Tobago, specifically in the infrastructure sector. That means that he has failed. And he being Trevor James as infrastructure secretary, and also the buck falls on the chief secretary. And the last thing, the reason why we are seeing this failure is not something that was not foreseeable. When this administration took it upon themselves to allocate to contractors in UNC-controlled areas of Trinidad the equivalent of more than a full year's worth of development budget, and infrastructure falls into development budget, to do jobs that Tobago contractors usually do. They were told by several persons. I think I heard the minority leader say it. I heard the leader of the PNM say it. I got on television and said it. We are going to see a recession. We're going to see a lessening of the economy. And it happened. The good news is they have 2 more years. You could learn from the mistakes that were made in the past and get a passing grade still. Because if you do 100%, even though you might be low, 50% or more is a passing grade with me. And so I'm optimistic that they would learn from the mistakes of the past.
All right, so moving on.
No, I just wanted to say something, because just one quick thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
go
in
ahead.
terms of the increase allocation, I want to say 2 things. One, that there were, how much seats there were? 12 seats. And there were now 15.
Right.
So they are more additional expensive in terms of manpower.
constituencies.
New constituency and sales secretaries and assistant secretaries. Okay? Secondly, some of that money have to put in terms of development, have to pay in debt that his administration would have left. Billions of dollars in debt. So all the monies that is on development, all the development is not for development purposes, is increase in the human resource in terms of secretaries and assistants, because we move from 12 to 3, and the debt that you would have incurred, that part of the money have to be paid in debt or to control.
Just say one word.
We're moving on to
In
that topic.
response.
We're moving on to that
Okay.
topic now, economic development.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, you touch on something there in terms of the chief secretary had installed himself as finance secretary, and from day one I thought what should have been done in that because I saw that there was nobody in the administration that had not administration but amongst the elected that had economic experience in terms
Ian
of
Pollard.
theory or practical, right?
Ian Pollard.
It demonstrated. Let me say demonstrated, right? So for that reason, I thought that he was going to elect a counselor for that specialist position, because I think it should be specialist. But I mean, he said that he would be up to the task. But there are some things in terms of economic development that I would have liked to see, and the management of the economy that I would like to see that wasn't there. But I wanted to ask the panel as well, what do you score on economic management of we already have been touching on it with the GDP growth and everything like that, but let me zero in on it a little bit, right? Has the government, which is one of the roles, being able to spur economic environment so that the citizens could thrive, has that been the case? Has the administration been doing that over the past 2 years? Go ahead, Leroy, because you wanted to.
First thing first, and I'll answer that question. Just in case any of the viewers suspect that there is some measure of truth, that THA going from 12 seats to 15 seats incurs a greater responsibility in terms of finances.
Well, it does.
It does.
Via the development budget?
Not by the
Well,
development
the expansion
budget.
of the recurring budget
It
will
is-
happen. Of the
It is
recurring,
important
Okay.
to understand just how much it goes up by.
Mm-hmm.
For each electoral district, the highest paid person in an electoral district office gets paid $7,500. In each of those electoral districts, you would have no more than about 5 persons, right? So 7 multiplied by 5, and that is if everybody was getting the highest. You're only looking at $35,000, right? 35,000 multiplied by 3, you're looking at less than $100,000 per month. So yes, it takes it up by $100,000 per month.
But not only that.
We are not
only that.
what other
Leroy, 'cause
expenses?
We're being disingenuous to do that.
Yes,
Because you have 3 extra secretaries.
right.
That is and our secretary
Three
might
secretaries.
yeah, it's
No.
12 to 15.
Yeah, but no
3 electors, sorry.
additional-
Yeah, not secretary, sorry. 3 other
But
assemblymen, right? There's
Mhm.
salaries for that, right?
Absolutely. But that does not come from your development budget, neither.
It
And
goes into
also-
recurring.
Okay, good.
Mhm.
So remember where our discourse was and where
Mhm.
Barry tried to say, well, we have to spend the development budget because we had, and it's an untruth. That's what you said.
What I said?
The development budget had to be
Did he
used
say
because
that or
we
did
had,
he say
I don't
total
think
we
he
moved
did.
from
budget? Is it
12,
total
no,
budget?
he said
don't
we
think he
moved from
said
12
that.
to 15. And
But
so
it's the
some of the
total
development
budget,
money
man.
had to
If
go
he had
there.
said that, I would have
And
thought
we-
one
No,
thing.
no.
Yeah,
It's
he didn't say
development.
that.
He's talking about the total budget.
Come on,
man.
sweetie.
But
Don't
I'm
do
still
that.
Don't
answering.
worry.
I'm
This would
still
be a
answering
new
about the
channel
finance.
for
I'll
us
take
to
it. I'll
review.
take
Yeah.
your
I'm
answer
still
level
answering
one
about the
week.
finance,
So go ahead.
Again, when we saw that the chief secretary was going to put himself as the finance secretary, I immediately posted it on Facebook. We asked him for trouble, right? I don't think the intent was good, right? So even if there was not a competency issue, and there's clearly a competency issue, the intent wasn't good. We saw a situation where he came up with a bright idea, I don't know how bright it was, that they should more centralize the THA spending by closing down
Some of the accounts.
many of the accounts, the vast majority of the accounts, and putting everything into a few accounts instead. And as a result of that, for the first time, and I keep saying for the first time because I cannot be challenged on that, we see bounce checks coming out of the Tobago House of Assembly. And if you look at the Bounce Check Act, right, that doesn't go by the name Bounce Check. I think it's called it's short term, it's called Bounce Check Act. When that happens, if those persons were to take him to court on that matter, on each of those checks, whatever number was written on that check, they could end up getting 10 times the amount.
Okay.
We dodge a big bullet. Also, the Tobago House of Assembly, Tobago in general, fell off the Moody credit rating. We will never understand that and Poor's credit rating. And what that says is that international investors have no way of measuring whether or not they should go into business in Tobago or with the Tobago House of Assembly. That's another big blow, right? And on top of that, we've seen that even though they get more money, the overall GDP has decreased. These are problems. However, I must say that when we start measuring, and I would strongly suggest that they start measuring because I are sure they want to look good. Measuring how much money we're bringing in due to the carnival, and when it comes to festivities and these sorts of things, they're doing an excellent job. They'll be able to show us some positives, but we need to start measuring the positives.
All right. Well, we have to take a short break. When we come back, we continue the discussion on the THA administration review, 2 years. All right? We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Hey, hello guys, welcome. Come have a seat.
Oh, this is so stylish and I love the fabric.
Darlings, you must tell us where you got your new furnishings.
We got them locally at Standard. They've got new chic European furniture, crafted from high quality material.
Oh, Standard?
No, it's Standard, their brand new Hive collection.
Experience luxurious European furniture at a price you will love. The Hive Collection, now exclusively available at Standard.
This Christmas, speed is on us. Get up to 300 megabits per second of speed with our new Link Up Plus plan. Enjoy more speed, more channels, and free streaming for less. Plus, introducing Link Up More with up to 1 gig download speed. Download, stream, video call, share memes, and more. Get free installation when you sign up in-store or online today at discoverflow.co.
Supplies has been a leading name for over 37 years in the glass and aluminum market in Tobago. We provide an extensive range of high-quality, innovative aluminum and glass products for commercial and residential use. Competitive prices with superior and professional services by committed employees who are guided by rigid quality standards. Tobago Glass Supplies specializes in the manufacture and installation of glass and aluminum products that are essential to today's homeowners and the business environment. We are engaged in marketing, sales, and installation of a variety of products. These ranges from windows and doors to necessities such as mirrors for homes and vehicles, designed and manufactured in-house or imported.
And we're back, and we continue the discussion when we are talking about the performance of the current THA administration over the past 2 years. We left off, well, let me introduce on set. We have Mr. Barry Nelson, we have Mr. Charles Smith, and we have Mr. Leroy George. All right, we left off speaking about economic development, which I think is one of the most important topics or most important sectors that the government is currently presiding over, and that is one of the biggest markers we rate them on, right? But we left off with the spending of the budget, and even though we had an increased allocation, total budget allocation, the argument was that there was less done in that time. But I believe Mr. Nelson wanted to clear up some of the misnomers in terms of having more responsibility with more sectors and more constituencies, because we have increased, and so the recurring expenditure went up with that, all right? Even though Mr. Smith was talking about the infrastructure, right? So we just had to clear that up a little bit before we move on, all right?
So my, yeah.
Go ahead.
Right, okay. I just want to respond to my fellow today. For over the years, so, and a matter of fact, probably the whole term of the 21 years of the last regime, we saw that the Tobago House of Assembly was the main employer and the driver of the Tobago economy, which was, as I said, unsustainable. For example, the central government normally gives the THA around between 18 to 20,000. I just want to use this example for CPEP, $18 million. At the end of the year. So, but the previous, and let me put in this, sometimes we have to put a little political favor to our discussion, which sometimes is factual, and in this case is factual. The past regime was using this URP as a feeding trough for political gains, for political votes. Because at the end, imagine the central government giving you 18 million, and at the end of the year, CPEP is expenses almost $60-something million. That is a supplement of almost nearly $50 million on the already small allocation that the THA have. THA. And most of that money, they used to come from the unspent balances that sometimes you have people to pay, gratuity to pay, and we have that problem where a lot of the contract employees in the THA waiting on gratuity from 2012. And the reason being that they wasn't getting their money, their gratuity pay. So how they used to think, okay, we employ all they getting all the monthly salary, all the chill out. Is either we send all the home, or they are nothing, or they wait on all the gratuity whenever that comes. And that money, which was sometimes allocated for those gratuity, was not paid, and that come on its spend balance to supplement things like URP and CPEP, which is the voting bank, the vote, which was unsustainable. So now, that is in a period where the economy of Trinidad and Tobago was good, when the oil money was flowing in. So that could have been sustainable then. But at some point in time, and this is why this administration is trying to activate the private sector.
They are? What's the economic grade, Barry? Give us the grade. No. give us the grade, Barry.
I agree with everything Barry just said.
No, give us the grade. I'm interested in the grade.
So that is why, and I said, they're trying to begin to engage the private sector. And without doing that, we will get nowhere, because the THA cannot carry this burden, especially in a dwindling economy and a dwindling where most of our income comes from gas and oil. Right. We see what's going on. Right. So the private sector in Tobago, which was non-existent, when we have a vibrant the Trinidad economy could afford to take those shocks because they have a private,
manufacturing sector is growing.
We don't have that.
Yeah.
And I am seeing direction that where the 360, the carnival, because our thing have to be tourism and agriculture. But the only thing that we have to try to mesh both of them because the both of them go in agriculture and tourism. You know, but you've seen signs that it's there.
Give us the grade, Barry.
Mr. Smith want a grade. Give him a grade.
What's the grade? You're supposed
My
to
grade
give a
is
grade.
always B. B.
You give him a B.
B.
All right,
Because
okay.
you know what is funny about it?
No, it's not funny.
You know
You
what is
gave
funny?
them an A for you gave them an A for infrastructure. Now you're giving them a B.
You
Go ahead.
know what is funny about it? The PNM for 21 years with billions of dollars was able to create a vibrant private sector into Tobago. But for 2 years of this administration, they were the stars and the moon. Smith, what call?
Go ahead, Smith. I'll give you the chance to
Well,
talk.
first of all, when you promise the stars and the moon, you better deliver. And the thing about it is
everything is not
no, Barry,
Rome
let's
was
be
not built in a
honest.
day.
I hear that. So
Yeah, go
that's
ahead.
a very good point. So let's talk about economics.
Yeah, let's talk. Let me hear you.
So I want to give them a good grade. For me to give you a good grade, the first thing I need to look at is what is your economic development plan? I'm yet to see that rolled out.
What's PNM had one?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, they
So
did.
so you go to the website,
Got
you
a
would see
proper
it.
name
You would
too.
see it. All right? So you need to have an economic development plan.
Agree.
On that plan, you would have your strategic objectives,
Yeah.
the things that you're going to do to make money. If you do not have that, then what would happen is that you have gotten into governance, you have spent 2 years, but you have not been able to channel the monies that you have received into areas that would generate the economic activities that you want. If you have no plan, then obviously your performance will be pitiful. And that's the real challenge. The single marker or measurement
go ahead.
for economic performance is
go on.
GDP.
How are you increasing that?
No, just now.
Go ahead.
We just spoke about, rather you, about the PNM performance over 21 years.
Yeah.
But there was consistent economic growth. If now you come into office even after the pandemic and you're doing worse than when we were in the pandemic, then what you telling me? How you talking about giving them a B grade or a A grade for economics? It cannot. It does not compute. The maths not mathsing. The truth of the matter is economically we are not doing well. And it's because we do not have a plan with detailed strategic objectives to achieve. So I heard about the plans during the campaign trail. Some of them sound good. Some of them I know is the moon and the stars. They're not really gettable. But there are some that are. And if you lay them out in your budget statement and say over the 4-year period, every year I'm going to spend X amount to get there. Then at the end of the 4-year period, Barry, you would be closer to achieving the objectives that you have set down.
You listen to the.
But I'm saying to you,
were you in the house?
Barry,
when they
Barry,
come from the
let's
retreat?
not
No, I'm asking
let's
that
not
question.
talk about the house. The house is a debacle that I don't want to get into tonight because
Because
how
you can't
this
get away.
how
You
this
can't get away.
current
You can't get
assembly
away.
is
You can't get-
treating
Can I-
our
can I-
house is an embarrassment. It is an embarrassment. I am ashamed
We're
of
going off
what
topic though.
the assembly has become. But that is
If I may
another
have
thing.
my
Where's your grade for
My
economics
grade
now?
for economics
Where's your grade?
is a E.
Is it okay?
Is a E.
Alright.
It is a passing grade, but it is a
But
poor
barely
passing
passing.
grade. Because the truth is, we are in recession by the figures, but it's not a bad recession. And when you go into and you disaggregate the figures, you'll recognize that there were actually some sectors that grew, but the important sectors did not do well.
Like what? Like what?
That didn't do well?
Yeah, sure,
like infrastructure, like banking
Agriculture.
and financial services. All of those experience
Banking is
retraction.
hard right now.
yeah.
But
Okay,
what is the
Barry.
reason?
If I may have an
What is the
opportunity
reason
to
for it? Is
speak.
it bad policy?
We-
Is it bad policy?
It's
What is
economic
the reason? What is the
instability.
reason for
I
it?
would say it's
Is it
economic
bad policy?
If I may have an
Absolutely.
opportunity to
Absolutely.
Let Leroy give his
Come on.
closing comments
Absolutely.
and then we'll wrap up.
What else it would be?
So that's the only thing bad policy.
Gentlemen, if I may have an opportunity to speak,
Let's Leroy talk
I
and we'll
hope
wrap up.
the viewers paid very close attention to everything Mr. Nelson said and everything Mr. Smith said. Because so far as what I heard, everything that Mr. Nelson said was factual, so far as I know, right?
And I appreciate that.
Also, everything that Mr. Smith said was also factual. More than one thing could be true at the same time. I would address the main thing that he said first. The PNM did have a plan, right? I would listen to Mr. Joel Jack, the Finance Secretary, speak about that plan, and he was way more detailed when he is reading the budget than the present Finance Secretary. And that's something we need to look at. And in unrolling the plan, in 1 year he would tell you, and this is what I was particularly impressed with about IPSAS and different programs that they were putting into place to increase transparency and efficiency in the Tobago House of Assembly. And he wouldn't just talk about it and say, well, we're going to do it. The next year, he'd come and tell you how far they got.
Absolutely.
Where that is concerned. And so, they got about halfway there. Right? They got about halfway there. And so that is the truth.
Exactly, and that's what you're saying.
And that is the truth in what he said. Now, what Mr. Nelson spoke about is something we need to pay very close attention to. Why it is difficult for us to experience economic growth is because we have an unsustainable situation whereby, in the THA, whereby since deep into the PNM regime, you had a situation, I remember not Orville London, it was this next Kelvin Charles. Kelvin Charles gave out the figures. He said 60% of Tobago was employed directly by THA with an additional 20% employed by contractors that lean heavily, almost exclusively on the THA. And what Mr. Nelson said is also true. It created a situation where the past regime was able to take advantage of the population. And irrespective of whether they did good or bad, they would be re-elected because they had the power of employment of a whole 80% of the people. The reality of the situation is that situation has gotten even worse. The private sector has an even smaller share even now, and it's causing difficulty in growing the economy. And as a result, we are already seeing, even after 2 years, that this administration is also taking advantage of the workers in order so that persons not only have to or feel the necessity to vote for them because of their jobs, but they feel scared to even voice opinions that seem to contradict the desires or the narrative that this THA administration has. And so, in closing, let us take the party out of the policy making. Because irrespective of who is in charge, whether it be PNM, PDP, QTP, or IDA, irrespective of who is in charge, if we do not fix our system where transparency is concerned, we have an audit report that was due to us from how long that we didn't see. If we do not fix our system, irrespective of who is in charge, they are going to not serve the people of Tobago well. And so we need to take the party out of the politics and the policy conversation.
Thank you. All right, on that note, we want to wrap up tonight's discussion. And we want to thank all the panelists for coming out. I totally enjoyed tonight's discussion. And yeah, we definitely should have some more. But until next week when we come back, which would be the last episode before Christmas, all right? Tobagonians, mind your business, right? Pay attention to what really concerns you, all right? And until next week, I'm Edison Thomas. I bid you adieu. Good night.